Part 2 of Miami Vice, the Florida burn. From where we left off, he wondered vaguely if the guy in the Mercedes had made him. Apparently not. He allowed himself some brief flash of paranoia. Might the junkies near the fire be watchdogs for Calderone? One of them swooned on his feet and plopped backward into an alley slush bank, staying down. His comrade moved over to him, removed the bottle in its brown bag, and returned to the fire. The guys were no lookouts. Calderone would have had them on street corners. They'd be more likely the trio of punks, but only more serious. The dark building disgorged a little group of people, expensive overcoats, medium-sized Halliburton suitcase toted by a highly paid South American killer, another equally ugly gorilla in expensive clothes just for show, and in the middle, Francisco Calderone, curly, silver-black hair swept backward from a front-end peak, flanked by two bald spots. His eyes were black, coffee dark, and dead of expression. The highlights in them like Mexican silver, artificial somehow. Like many short men, Calderone had compensated by trying to become big in other ways. The suitcase was loaded with cash or dope, or both. Calderone was big in the dope trade, Raphael had once told Tubbs. That had been the understatement of the century. Calderone, the mean little man with the pocky face, was the dope trade for much of the East Coast, including New York, which was crammed to the spires with folks eager to shell out large amounts of money exchanged for the white powder to shove up their noses or plug into major veins. Stupid way to be hip, thought Tubbs. The killer without the suitcase played chauffeur and helped Calderone into the right rear of the Mercedes. The other hand was stuffed in his overcoat pocket, probably wrapped around a Magnum. Or, more likely, it was stuck through a hole in the coat lining and held the stock of an Uzi submachine gun. That brought the memory back full blast. The deal was going down. Raphael and his partner, a white dude named Jack Bartermus, were playing the buyers, setting up Calderone for an A1 bust on the Brooklyn waterfront. Raphael was wearing Gianni Versace threads and looking high class, all dealer cool. A couple of Colombians, another Halliburton. Raphael flashed the cash, a calf-hide briefcase full of banded stacks of 50s, 50 bills to a stack. Raphael had been dogging Calderone for months undercover. Tubbs watched from 25 yards away. He and two backup men were hidden behind a crated shipment of hemp. He could see Calderone sitting in the rear seat of an airport limousine. His window was down. He oversaw the deal. Tubbs saw him nod significantly. The Colombians opened up the Halliburton. When Raphael and Jake saw the stash, they'd arrest everybody, and Tubbs, his men, and another group of backups near the waterfront warehouse would move in and sweep up. The case opened. The Colombians pulled out cocked Uzis. Tubbs screamed a warning, but it was drowned out in the blatting stammer of automatic weapons fire. Raphael's chest came apart, spoiling his new suit. Pieces of Jake Bartermus flew into the Atlantic Ocean. Raphael collapsed in a spray of his own blood and didn't twitch. Tubbs was up and running. The Colombians jumped into the limo as return fire banged against the car's armor plating. It sped away into the night. Tubbs leapt over Jake's unmoving corpse. He held his brother's head. His hands immediately became wet and sticky. Raphael's eyes connected with his. "Looks like I blew it," they said, unapologetic. Raphael tried to clasp Tubbs' hand, but his body would no longer obey his brain. The hand jerked like a speared fish and was still. Raphael's eyes glazed over. He exhaled, and he was as dead as a pipe dream. Tubbs stayed there, cradling his brother's head until the useless ambulances screeched up. Calderon nodded his head, and Raphael had become history. That was life. The Mercedes tried a U-turn, came up short thanks to the ice clogging the street, backed up, and then cleared it. Tubbs watched the taillights a second before turning over his own engine. As he pulled away from the curb, 40 pounds worth of loaded trash can hit the vacated space like a ghetto ICBM. It split a seam on impact and scattered garbage into the street. Tubbs glanced back and saw the Latino punks giving him a one-finger salute from the top of the building. "Y tu, vatos," he thought, and drove away. Calderon's vehicle took Atlantic Avenue and headed for the 59th Street Bridge. Tubbs followed it across, keeping 2 blocks back as they came into the Bronx. More slummed out real estate. It seemed to go on forever, dank and gray, wet and unrelenting. The sleep-grogged, drugged out, ticked off bad side of the New York profile. Tubbs himself was a Big Apple boy who maintained a provincial love for this overblown, noisy human waste dump at Three Ring Circus. It was required of any native son. The town may lack restraint, but it had everything and beat life back in the wheat belt hands down. Problem was, such a cosmopolitan outlook allowed scumbones like Calderon to thrive, parasites on the social organism. For his dining and drinking pleasure in the pre-dawn, Calderon had chosen an establishment called Huge Tommy's, right in the heart of the war zone. It was a monolithic 19th century warehouse that had been converted into an after-hours club, and Tubbs knew that the front door was actually bomb-proof. A parking valet, freezing his buns off, jumped from foot to foot under the blue floodlight near the front canopy. Calderon's limo went into a holding pattern behind an obscene-looking Corsair stretch job. $300,000 on wheels, complete with a hot tub. It pulled to the door and vomited out a Keystone Cops gaggle of moneyed Iranians with $2,000 worth of Gucci covering their feet and a wardrobe that violated the good taste ordinance. For sure, the son of the Sheikh, thought Tubbs, times 5. Poor little rich boys on a slum thrills ride. And we'll leave it there for now.